Alright guys, I'ma say it. I like video games. Crazy, I know, but the medium of video games is so genuinely important to keeping me sane and as a person. I think about and play games all the damn time. This channel has been proof of that fact in that I'm slightly deranged. For a bit of background, I've grown up playing games, namely a lot of Nintendo's offerings to the world, and have been branching out more and more in the last 8 or 9 years. From Mario to Kirby to Sonic to A Hat in Time to the Ori games to Persona to Spider-Man PS4 to Hi-Fi Rush to every fucking indie game I've ever talked about in the end of the year videos. The point is here, I've played a lot of stuff, and I think about what makes these games tick all the damn time. But more than anything, it has always been a dream of mine to make my own games. So this summer I downloaded my first game engine and have been learning it ever since. So here's a peek into that endeavor, and also the fact that this guy here is dumb as fuck. Despite what many people would think, the main thing I was doing before the summer began was just writing down game ideas and figuring out a plan for how I was going to go about learning game development. This video will entirely make it obvious, but yeah, I did not plan anything past what I planned on doing once the summer ends. The only thing I knew is that I was going to take a game programming course in my next semester of college, and that we'd be using the engine Godot. It was an engine that was already on my radar because of the Unity drama, and it's also been making the rounds lately for new developers, so I figured, why not? This is a good chance to get into it, especially if it's going to be used in a college course. Up until summer began though, it mainly consisted of me continuing my computer science classes and brainstorming ideas for games which may or may not happen in the future. But once summer began, I was so ready, locked in as hell. I downloaded Godot and began my journey. If that journey involved fucking off for a month to hang out with buddies and then write a video essay about sucking ass at video games that you should watch right now, pretty please. Okay, I may be lying a bit here. I definitely did start after I downloaded the engine. I went through this Brackeys tutorial to get a feel for the different features of Godot, and then afterwards I thought it'd be neat to try and make a wall jump, but yeah, I didn't get very far in that one. This tutorial is very good though. I strongly recommend it for anyone new to Godot. It is genuinely very helpful in learning the basics in a manner that doesn't take forever. I got to take a peek at the physics engine of Godot in a very basic sense. Got to learn about player input and character bodies being moved via script. You also take a peek at signals, collisions and colliders, tile sets, and a bunch of other stuff. Finishing the tutorial did leave me a little stumped on what to do next though. This is where I actually decided to take a month away to work on other things and hang out with friends and stuff. I could not focus on learning a whole ass new skill while trying to balance everything else. I had too much on my mind and too little time to do everything I wanted, and I still had that video project in mind, so I decided to work on that instead. Finishing that video though really did make me lock the hell in though. The next day I watched Brackeys' GD script tutorial, but it did help a little bit considering I've only ever used GD script once. I watched a bunch of game development videos during this time and then started another tutorial, but tried being more hands-off with it this time. But you could kind of see that the rust was real. The thing about doing what I did was that a month-long break basically made it so I remembered the very, very basics, but not how to apply them. Doing that tutorial did make me realize one big issue for me currently. I am slightly stupid and don't know basically anything about GD script or anywhere near the features that are necessary to make this one happen. So I had to watch it. This language contains so many damn built-in functions, and there's so many that I have no idea what they even do. Like if you told me the function is on floor returns true if the collision body is on the floor, I would probably reply with But if you told me something like the lerp function returns the amount of linear interpolation between two vectors, I would probably reply with I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get the simple space shooter working on my own, but ended up falling back on the tutorial series when I needed some follow-up help. Like, this tutorial uses a lot of stuff I just hadn't used before or seen before. Other stuff, and stupid me at the time was stupid. Nothing's changed. I did end up finishing it though. By far the biggest hurdles to get over were anything involving the math, more so on the vector math side of things. This shit makes a slight bit of sense, I guess, but when I only have the slightest understanding of how this works, you can't really expect my barely functioning ass to apply it to something as complicated as as game development. I had a lot of interesting bugs during this though. At one point I forgot a plus sign in my code, and it made it so the meteors would just fucking disappear after showing up in a random location. Finding that fuck up actually took off an hour of my life, but you know what? I'm trying. Finishing my neat little space shooter was cool. It was a pretty good cap off to my summer before I began my elective class on game development, which, my college class. I'll get into the problems with this class a bit later on, but for now, the first main assignment was Godot's Dodge the Creeps tutorial. It's meant to be a very simple 2D game and to get you familiar with some of the basics of the engine. I finished it pretty quickly since Godot's documentation goes crazy, and it also was not hard to make at all. And by pretty quickly, I mean like 3 to 4 hours tops. It kind of only just reinforced a lot of information I already knew. But because I finished it so quickly, I decided to, borrow the assets from GD Quest's Godot tutorial where they make a Vampire Survivors clone and try to make it without following the tutorial and using it more just as a reference point. So yeah, here we go. Here's how to make a Vampire Survivors clone by someone who's never played Vampire Survivors. Wait, what? To start, you lock in by stealing the assets and then continuing to be confused by everything in the folders because for some reason, some of the stuff is already made for you. You could lock in harder and try to recreate these things, but get real, you're lazy and are just gonna be like me and, you know, not. Hey, look at this input map I did instead. Notice that aim thing? Yeah, you don't need it. And if you weren't this dumbass, you would know that fact. Luke here had that realization right about now and then looked up a version of Vampire Survivors on itch.io to see what the thing I was making a clone of even played like. Luke here is a little fucking stupid if you can't tell. Anyways, hey, see this default stuff? Get rid of it and then drop one of these in there. You can do what I did and access the animations in the animation player and then bam, bro is walking. I said walk, fucker. Yeah, I did a lot of this process off recording, so some things I don't have a ton of footage of. I did get footage of me adding a background, and when I came back to recording for real, I ended up making a tree scene so player shots and stuff could get blocked by them if they didn't position themselves properly. I don't think I ever got that properly working, so oops. After that though, I decided to give the player a camera. Can you tell I don't really know what I'm doing with how much I jump around? Actually, you know what? Fuck it. This video barely has a focus, so let's go on a tangent for a second. Someone needs to strap my undiagnosed ass to one thing for 10 minutes, because the biggest thing in this entire process was me just jumping around to different parts of the game, barely working on anything and staring at it for maybe 20 minutes, saying, that's a later problem, and then trying something else. And then boom, the cycle starts repeating itself. This is half a crippling attention span for work I do really in fact enjoy doing and thinking about, and the other half a glimpse into my workflow. If you told me to sit at my desk for more than 5 minutes and stare at one thing that isn't a video game, anime, or some YouTube video that I absolutely do not need to be consuming, I think I would actually be dead. Fuck, as I've been writing this part of the video, I have been going back and forth between finishing this specific sentence and sifting through the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 soundtrack. All I'm saying is, hey dumbass, yes you, when everything is a later problem, suddenly all you have are just problems. You hear that? You're a problem. Anyways, time to deal with my problems by making a gun to, you know, kill the enemies, and absolutely nothing that YouTube wouldn't like me to talk about in a video on this website. Persona 3 reference. Okay, but before that, I did fuck around with the camera node a little bit because I thought we were a little too zoomed out and, oops. Gave that bitch a sprite and a detection field so the gun could take a peek at enemies and, well, you know. Wrote this code that I absolutely definitely didn't just look up from the original tutorial, and while I was doing it, Godot crashed. Isn't that fun and cool and definitely not awful for my workflow? Before making the gun though, I did make an enemy scene. See, look, bro's just a little guy, and then you can make him walk towards the player just like that. The rest of it is mostly uninteresting, just health management and UI. The most noteworthy thing is I made the UI very easily and then added some finishing touches later. And now I present to you my Vampire Survivors clone tutorial thing. Roll the clip. Fuck ass can't figure this shit out really is the best thing I could have titled that game, god damn. And also, dude, after finishing this, my dumbass tried making a grappling hook in 2D for about a month and didn't get fucking anywhere. God, I am stupid. I got to learn the basics of state machines, and the character body 2D node really isn't kidding when it says it only moves via script, because that fucker only moves via script. I was then trying to find a way to swap out what type of physics body the player is controlling, but ugh, I don't care. It's time for my big project of my class. So this project is kind of really neat and cool. He just told us to make a 2D game prototype where we write a proposal with a minimum viable product, make the prototype, and present it to the class at the end. And for a game programming class, yeah, that's cool and hype. But there's a problem. You want to hear it? No, hold on. I'll come to you.
Not a single one of us know what we're fucking doing.
You know what? Fuck it. It's that time. This class is such a waste of potential. For context, my school's computer science department is essentially straight CS. Very little creativity or room for specifics like game or web development. We do, however, have an elective called Intro to Game Programming. And for a class called Intro to Game Programming, someone please tell me why in the fuck I have not learned a single thing about how to make video games. No programming techniques, nothing about state machines or how this engine functions. As of writing this portion of week 11 of this 16-week course, we've done the aforementioned Dodge the Creeps tutorials for 4.3 of Godot, did about 8 lectures on design and theory stuff, then 4 assignments on analyzing game mechanics, and have now started our final big project, which is making a game. We have only had about 5 assignments and a midterm in these 11 weeks, all of which were theory based. So why have we gotten very little done? That's because for some reason my professor thought the tutorial for Godot, you know, the first fucking assignment, would take someone up to 6 goddamn weeks to complete. You know, the very simple, heavily documented tutorial where all you have to do is follow the fucking directions and copy code. Yeah, that would take 6 weeks to complete for some people. I finished that shit in 3 to 4 hours. So for the next 6 weeks, I had to fill the time by doing my own game dev shit. I wish I was making this up. This is where I did the Vampire Survivor stuff, but I definitely lost a lot of drive there because of the class, especially when our lectures were fucking hot ass. Overly long, repetitive lectures with information everyone who's seen at least one video game design essay would very much already know, and some of the material he gave was just straight up fucking wrong.
But we don't have to go into that too deeply. Hey, look at this little guy I made. I ended up using Photoshop's vector tools to make the sprites, and like, he's not perfect and they're bound to change a lot if the prototype were to be expanded into a full game. But for a guy's first attempt at animating a fucking circle, I mean, it could be worse, I guess. It was originally meant for just practice on making sprites, but it ended up becoming a very good opportunity to put this little guy into action. This project in general was a very neat opportunity for me that I was really excited to go forward with, since I would get to learn all sorts of new things. The idea we had was pretty simple. Basically, we're going to do a speed-based platformer with a grappling hook and a dash mechanic, where the idea is all of your moves are tethered to a health bar. It's a health management game, essentially, where you try to get to the end, sure, but you're also trying to make the most of your resources and keep your momentum going. The enemies are there to wither your resources using bullet hell-like attack patterns, but also reward you for playing well by refilling those resources a little and giving you a burst of speed. In other words, this entire project was going to be a very good opportunity to figure out what feels good for player control in a design sense, but also try to get a grip on vector math, or the physics equations that make games function. And that's exactly what I did, baby. We got a grappling hook that kind of functions the way you'd expect, we got a dash, we got enemies who fucking scream, and more than anything, we got a little guy going fast, and that's all we really need. Okay, that might be a little too fast. I'd love to go into specifics about how this prototype was made, but there's a lot of physics related stuff, and that is nerd shit. I do really like a lot of the solutions we came up with for stuff like enemies and basic player movement, but it's hard to tell if those lines of code are the ones that actual software devs would approve of, you know? It's a prototype though, so the obvious glue and duct tape holding everything together is okay, I guess. This project really did give me a better understanding of the math behind the games though, potential, which was honestly the biggest thing I wanted from it. I'm still not great on this stuff. Knowing when to lerp or normalize something isn't very intuitive to me yet, but I'm getting there. In terms of the design aspect, I think the idea that I pitched does have potential. I just think our execution of it all is very lacking. The level design is rough, especially because you're entirely incentivized to not even bother with the top path. Dude, we did the Sonic Frontiers shit. Are you kidding me? I do think a more vertically oriented level design could really benefit a game like this. Anyways, the grappling hook definitely does need to be fixed as well. Not sure why we decided to keep the fact that the length of the rope depends on where the player is at all times, even after it's casted, but whatever, I guess. And don't ask why the dash is like this. I didn't want it to be this way. I originally wanted a shorter dash to make it easier to adjust to bullets coming at you, and I couldn't get a dash up or down working though, so we only have a horizontal dash for now that works in the air and on the ground and also has some jig. But yeah, the footage you're watching is pretty much what we turned in. It's very simple, and I have my grievances with how the prototype ended up, but that's what a prototype is. It's an experiment, a pitch for an idea that may or may not work. And this idea in particular is something I definitely do have design ideas for, but whether or not those ideas come to life is a question for the future. This project was a product of time constraints and a learning experience for me and my teammates, so when we presented to the class our prototype, I think it was the first time in game development I actually felt happy about something I made, aside from the interruption by a random Amber Alert in California, but whatever. Nothing but relief filled me when I sat down after that presentation, but that's obviously not where this story is going to end. I'm just getting started, you know? I'm going to keep developing this little guy, make new ideas happen, join game jams and all that, you know? In fact, I already got my eyes set on the upcoming Pirate Software game jam, so I am excited for that. Recently, I watched these 3 videos about finishing your gaming backlog, and in it, Daryl mentions the concept of those games that make you go, man. The ones that hit you on a deep personal level and hit you emotionally. For me, those are the Xenoblade Chronicles and Before Your Eyes of the world. Games that hit me like no other. But at the same time, they're also the games that make me go, man. Video games are fucking awesome, and that's the kind of thing that I want to make. The past few months have been a blur to me, and if I'm honest, my life and relationship with art and the things I do have been this image almost fucking constantly lately, but I keep getting reminders of why I do this stuff in the first place. Look Back came out recently and was a reminder of why I like to make things in the first place, why I want to make art and inspire people. It's media like that, things like Mark Brown from Game Maker's Toolkit releasing his first game and providing a very honest description of the whole process, or Pirate Software's 44-minute long pep talk for anyone wanting to make video games that are just so inspiring for me right now. It's so easy to get discouraged, and yet things like this just make it feel less daunting. Finishing this project and then experiencing these things about finding, creating, and experiencing art has been really good for me lately. I have so many ideas and am so scared for my future, but media like this fights off the depressive thoughts, I guess, that I'm in over my head and need to chill out. They provide a reminder to keep working, keep expanding the little guy, do some jams, and maybe one day I'll be able to make a game with the coolest people that hits other people the same way my favorites do, and have even just one person out there go, man, video games are fucking awesome. Hey guys, thank you guys so much for watching my first ever game development log. I'm not too happy with how this video turned out, but I think it turned out okay enough. I honestly want to continue doing more of these in the future. But for now, if you want to see a bunch more of my game development stuff, I plan on posting a lot of it to Blue Sky. Links in the description. Follow me there, pretty please. But other than that, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully not in the next 10 months. Also save me from Balatro.